wanna know how to find it. Seek it out when they hide it. You know it's in the bag when it's an easy grab. But come on, take a chance now. So go, geocache, geocache. And if you need help, we're right there in a flash. If you got a question, just call in and ask. Uncover the stash on the Geocaching Podcast. The Geocaching Podcast.
Welcome to episode 317 of the Geocaching Podcast, recorded live on September 11th, 2013. I'm your host, XPunkX, with
Daryl W4 and
Ed Hardhat.
You can join our live video stream and watch us as we record this episode and participate with other listeners. That can be found at geocachingpodcast.com/live. We have a voicemail line, and that number is 630-31-VOICE. You can find us on Twitter at geocachingpodcast.com/Twitter and Facebook at geocachingpodcast.com/Facebook. This episode is sponsored by Cache Advance. See cache-advance.com for all of your geocaching needs. Welcome back, guys. I feel rushed because I just got into the studio a little bit late, actually, so I'm a little bit rushed tonight. But it's good to be back on the show with you tonight. And unfortunately, I wasn't rushed because I was doing caching. I was rushed because I was getting stuff around for a garage sale, and so we were. It was a busy night. So, but I made it to the show.
Yeah, good to have you here, and I can certainly relate. I was also kind of running around doing a lot of last-minute stuff, and I was actually doing some cache stuff with the monthly meet and greet, so I made it over there during a heavy storm. Made it back in time, fortunately. I was beginning to wonder if the storm was going to hamper my return, and I'd be late. But
so did it finally cool off a little bit up there?
Yeah, we went from 93 degrees down to 67 degrees.
Wow, that's crazy.
It's over about 2 hours-ish, that's happened, but still, it's a crazy intense drop. But I'll tell you, it was really nice after the rain kind of let up a bit because it's not as sticky. It was cooler, certainly, but it was nowhere near as sticky. You didn't feel like you were breathing water in.
Nothing like a wet blanket.
No. But, it's been a good caching week for me. I'm keeping up with the caching streak now at 42 days. And I went down to Ohio with some friends to do some caching and walked a trail down there, the Canal Fulton, I think it's called, trail, which was an old transportation pre-railroad waterway where they had the canal boats dragged along by horse. And one of the cool things is in the city of Canal Fulton, a little town of Canal Fulton, they actually do on the weekends the canal boat rides. So we're following behind horses on this trail, dragging the canal boat. So it was a kind of cool adventure, and grabbed a few pictures, but nothing really to get excited about or write home about.
Very cool. How about you, Andy?
Because we are trying to get a lot of our stuff around for the garage sale, I've not been doing much caching. So I'll have to say I'm pleading the fifth on this one here, but it has been a busy week, getting ready to move and all that sorts of good stuff like that. So, how about yourself?
Not too bad, actually. This weekend we really, Amy and I took it easy. It was enjoyable. We didn't do any real geocaching to speak of. We're still kind of getting over the 31 days of geocaching. But what was nice was this was the first time, and I love this, Amy loves football. So this was the first time I actually had somebody I could sit down, watch the football games. We got snacks. We got all the stuff. We had ribs on the grill. We had all this other cool things going. It was just one of those really nice, peaceful weekends where we could just kick back and relax and just have a good time. Now, next weekend, we're already having a lot of plans that we're going to go out and do some special stuff for the vlog and do geocaching that way. And the other cool thing that I didn't put in the show notes that I'm very, very geeked about is I got my press credentials approved and confirmed for CES 2014. So I will be there this year in Las Vegas. So very, very cool stuff. Had a good time.
Geocaching question of the day.
Hey Cachers, I'm Lookout Lisa from Cache Advance, your host for the Geocaching question of the day. Well, I've been caching since 2002, and I've been in the business of geocaching since 2005. Mondays through Thursdays, we ask our followers on Twitter, Facebook, and Google Plus a question about geocaching. We recently asked, what method of travel do you use most while geocaching? Well, after tallying the answers, we found that about 85% use their cars, trucks, and vans to get to caches. Just over 10% walk or hike to most or all of their geocaches. We also heard about many other traveling methods, such as bus, subway, scooter, SUP, which is SUP or stand-up paddle, bikes, mopeds, motorcycles, ORVs, kayaks, canoes, a few horses, and even, really like this one, roller dog sledding. Now that sounds like a fun way to get to a cache. Well, hey, we really enjoyed hearing about the journeys to geocaches, and you can too if you follow us, Cache Advance, on Facebook, Twitter, and Google Plus for the geocaching question of the day. Thanks and happy caching!
Very cool. That's always interesting to hear how people are getting to caches. I love the difference in like the randomness of some of those things. I love that. That's awesome. Thanks for asking that question, Lisa. Well, tonight we're going to be talking about fall cache maintenance. That's right. On this side of the world, we're preparing for the resurgence of fall geocaching and the inevitable sign of winter, which, yuck, isn't too far behind. So what are we going to do? On the other side of the world, winter's grip is just starting to let go, and spring is soon in the air, and you guys are going to love that because you're going to get out and it won't be winter anymore. So either way, though, geocaches are going to need to do some maintenance, whether it's fall or spring on your side of the world. You're going to need to do some maintenance. So we thought, what a better time to do this episode than right now. Although, guys, after I looked at the temperatures today, it was literally almost 100 degrees, so I don't know that I can call it fall here. And either way, technically it's supposed to be fall, right?
Yeah, right. It is. And this is one of the things this is now where it starts cooling down here in the northern hemisphere enough that people want to go out caching again, and down in the southern hemisphere it's where it starts warming up again enough that people want to go out caching. So this is when you can expect your caches that have been a little less loved lately to start getting a lot more attention. So it's really important to get out there, check on them, and take care of those caches.
Well, and not to mention, too, that, even though it's been hot here and even though it's been cold in the other hemisphere, people are still have been out caching. So it's a good time now that seasons are kind of changing to get out and do some of this maintenance here tonight. Or not here. Tonight you can call in live. We'd love to hear what your thoughts are on this. Our number is 630-31-VOICE. That'll get you live on the show with us tonight. We would love to hear in your own voice what you think about caching and maintenance and how you do it. So let's talk a little bit about what is geocaching maintenance. First, I'll go ahead and start off with that one. What is geocaching maintenance? It's the time that we get out there, go to our own caches, because most of the time, I would say probably 98% of the time, cachers have caches that they own. I know you have caches that you own, Daryl, and Head Our Dad. I've got caches that I own. And so now is the time. Maintenance is basically getting out there, and at a high level, we're going to talk about it. What is it? Getting out there, checking on it, making sure that it's all okay, and that it's ready to go for the next caching season. So why should we do it?
Well, I think a lot of times geocaches, depending on how much their use is, sometimes they get filled up with clutter and garbage and things that you don't necessarily want in a geocache at a particular time. And the other end of it, a lot of times if you get a lot that get hit from families, a lot of kids, things like that, a lot of the swag gets depleted as well, depending on the size of the geocache and how much stuff that's in it. And of course, you get into that great big debate of, well, should we replace the swag or not, and who's responsible for it? But all in all, I think for tonight's purposes, the idea is just to make sure that the geocache is in good shape and things are the way that they're supposed to be. And then what do you do when it needs to be repaired?
Well, I think, you'd mentioned new swag, and that's one of the things that I've got a really large Tupperware container. I mean, by large, I mean it's, probably, it's one of the bigger ones that Tupperware makes. And originally I put it out, and it was full of toys and full of stuff. And to be 100% honest, I've not went out and actually checked on it probably for about a year or so. And last couple of logs I've got on it are needs more swag, it's out of swag, needs more stuff. And so that, that's one thing that I do need to get out there and do, especially in these larger containers. We've seen a lot of the coming out of these smaller containers, but when the larger containers have the space for stuff. It looks really bad when you have a huge container and you open it up and there's nothing in it. And so it's just important to get out there, refresh your swag. It's pretty easy to get these different swag items, and I know that I've got 3 kids, and so guess where we go? At least twice a month, McDonald's, and so we have these toys, and so I need to get out there and put new stuff in these containers.
The dollar stores are a great spot to get that kind of stuff. There are mail order places that will give you some great deals on really awesome giveaways, stuff like that. And especially around this time of year where people are looking for stuff for Halloween giveaways, you'll find a lot of this stuff in a lot of the stores where it's cheap little under $1 items that you can drop into kids' trick-or-treat bags. But X-Monk-X, you mentioned the logs, and that's one of the big things that you really need to look out for is what is the condition of those log books that you have, or log sheets? Are they getting close to full? Do they need to be replaced because of that? Have they gotten a little damp and need to be replaced for that kind of, degrading? We've seen a lot of them too, where they get torn, where as they're coming in and out of the containers. If you have them in a baggie in a larger cache container, make sure that the pencils haven't been dropped in there and that those have poked through. So bring the log books, the pencils, the new log books, or the baggies, the Ziploc style baggies, to make sure that you can get those all taken care of. And I always like to put a little desiccant pack in there, which you can grab out of a lot of the vitamin bottles or that kind of stuff too. It just helps to reduce the probability that that's going to get all musty as quickly.
Yeah, there's nothing like a log full of goo when it comes to something like that. One of the things that I really do like recommending, and I hope a lot of other people start catching up with this, and I actually got this idea from up in Michigan, is if you've got a small and a larger size geocache, one of the things that I really love for logbooks, instead of those baggies that we know are going to fail after a certain amount of time, use a small container, use a 35 millimeter container, especially those white ones that have the better seal to them, or a different type of plastic container that holds the logbook, and put it inside the geocache. Those tend to keep a little bit better, and I was really impressed. Like I said, Michigan's where I learned about that, and I do that in all my geocaches now.
Yeah, I hit a very large container today. I'd say it's probably like a 10-gallon bucket. And what was really interesting in there is they had different containers within that one big bucket. So you had a container that was a log book and pencil. You had another container that was swag, and another container, as I recall, that was for the trackables.
Yeah.
So yeah, you've got that great stuff in there for when you need it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's super important. Now, before we move on again, I want to remind you guys our call-in number is 630-31-VOICE. You can call in live and be on the show tonight. Again, that's 630-31-VOICE to call in live and be on the show with us tonight. Now, Daryl had kind of mentioned about the community aspect of geocaching and taking care of the geocaches. I know that I do that, especially I appreciate that when I see in the logs, hey, this is full. We either A, replace the container, or B, you need to replace the container. Is it okay if we do that? What's your guys' take on that as far as should the community be responsible, or should they take care? Should we rely on the community as a geocachers to take care of geocaches? I don't necessarily want to say rely on it. I don't think you should rely on it. I mean, I appreciate when people do say that they're going to use it or do it because for me, honestly, I mean, mine aren't too far away from me. They're all within fairly driving distance, but I don't get out to where these geocaches are very often. They're all different places, and so for me, it's hard for me to make a specific trip out there to check on each one of these. So I do appreciate when sometimes a cacher will contact me and say, hey, I went ahead and replaced the container here, and most of that's okay. I mean, I wouldn't like that if they replaced the ammo container, but then again, I wouldn't see the ammo container being messed up very often. But the other smaller containers, it to me is not a big deal if it's close in what it looked like originally. I mean, if they went out there and made it completely different, then I would have a problem with that. But if it's going to keep the same size container, I'm okay with that as long as they contact me. And I appreciate that if they contact me. I wouldn't want them to just get out there and do it. But I appreciate that. What's your take on this?
Yeah, normally in a case like that, it really is a judgment call. I do know a lot of geocachers that do want to keep the logs. So what I would say is if you found a full logbook, save it. I mean, if it's complete goo, obviously it's not something that you're going to be able to save. But if it's something that's legible, save it and contact the geocache owner and say, hey, look, I've got this logbook. Do you want it? I'll mail it to you. That kind of thing. I think those are great. For the small micros, like your 35 millimeter containers that are getting messed up and they're inexpensive, they're easy to replace. I really don't have a problem with that. When it starts getting into the larger ones, if it's something that obviously it's going to need to be replaced, like a large lock and lock box, something like that, putting some, having your geocaching repair kit with you is always a great idea. Try to repair it as much as you can, and then notify the cache owner that way, because sometimes they may have certain plans for the larger ones, but the idea is to get it out so that they know that it's going to be fixed. That's really important. And like Annie said, when it comes to an ammo box, I'm thinking if an ammo box got that beat up, I don't think that's going to be as big of an issue, and the owner's going to want to take care of that one.
Now, let's talk a little bit about refreshing the camo. You had mentioned about the camouflage there. And this goes lots of different ways. You may have placed a box out there that had literally like some sort of a camouflage tape on it, or spray or whatever that made it blend in with the area. Or you may have been using surroundings. You may have piled up a little pile of sticks or whatever. But we know that not everyone takes the same care as rehiding the caches as you did when you originally made it. That's your baby. You put it out there. You made sure it was hidden well. You did this. But I know that I'm even guilty of that myself, where I just want to get the logbook back in and get going. And so I know that for me, sometimes I don't take the respect and the time that I should to get out there and actually place it back like it was. So this is also a good time when we're doing our maintenance to get out there and not only take stuff with us, maybe more tape, depending on how we hid the box itself, camouflage the box itself, but also get out there and the nature camo, get out there and find maybe more things that will help it keep it camouflage better too.
Well, I do know that a lot of the containers, especially in areas like this where we have the seasonal changes in the leaves going away, turning brown or colors or whatever, it does in many cases require the camouflage to be actually changed. And there are a number of cachers who will actually have like the summer camo, the winter camo, and also a fall camo, where they actually go and change the cache container for that time of year. It'll be the same lock and lock or whatever, just with a different camo job to better reflect the surroundings during those times of the year.
Well, and I think that that's one of those things that, like you said, it does definitely change the time, and it changes the game too. I mean, I know that the difficulty level of some caches go way up when it's summertime and the bushes are all filled in, and versus when it's not. And I think that it's good to to kind of represent the same hide during all times of season. And if that means getting out there and finding a way to hide it in the snow, as it's not a green ammo can sticking out in the white snow or whatever, wherever you're at, that's a good thing to do. If you can find like some sort of a white thing to go over your ammo can or whatever you're using, that's a great idea.
Yeah, but don't forget that the snow might not arrive so much. We had a lot of that last year, where it was there and gone and there and gone, and in a lot of areas where they had snow all year normally, they were saying that they didn't have snow this much this year.
Yeah, that's actually a good point, because a lot of times the weather, it could even be the summer when you've got those hot climates, especially the sun can do all sorts of nasty things to geocaches, and you'd be surprised how much it looks different after 4 or 5 months of bleaching that way, or the other way where it's encased in ice and grounded snow and tore up that way. It doesn't matter on which main season it is, something's going to end up happening to that geocache, and it may need some touch-ups.
Right, and speaking of touch-ups, that's not just on the camo, but I think that also the caches themselves. I mentioned about not always having it, the camo, not necessarily hiding the cache back to where it was originally, but sometimes that also then messes the cache up, because some cache owners may have not put it back exactly right. The next guy moves it. It's like that old game of telephone, where you know, one person starts out and is saying something, and by the time it gets down to the very end of the person, it's a completely different statement. Same thing happens here. You know, you have a cache that it's hidden really well, and then I take it out and put it back, but I may have moved it just a little bit, and then the next guy's like, well, I don't think this is exactly where it was, because this is a better hide than you know, this is actually probably a more appropriate place, and they hide it back somewhere else, and next thing you know, everyone's like, I can't find it. I was looking by the whatever, and you're like, that was nowhere near where I originally hid the cache.
But the coordinate says it's
Right.
over here.
Right, exactly. So I think this is also a great time to get out there and check and make sure that hide is at where it was at when you placed it and walked away. You know, because that has happened, and you know, it's something to check out and make sure that your cache didn't get up and walk, you know, 5 feet to the left or right.
You know, one of the things that I thought was interesting, I went back to a couple of my hides recently around where I put them out about 3-4 years ago. The overbrush, the overgrowth, the one geocache that I had near there, somebody had dropped off, like they had chopped off a top of a tree and all the branches and all this stuff right on top of ground zero. It's good to go back and check out your geocaches anyways, because you will be surprised over just a minimum amount of time how much the environment has changed. And the nice grassy knoll that you had 3 years ago, or that big old wooden stump that was there 4 years ago, may not be there anymore. So it's something you need to check every once in a while.
Yeah, and I've had entire caches that I've had to move around, archive, and replace because of changes in the terrain around them. You know, the shrubbery that was there maybe has died out or been cut down, and it's not the
or it's 10 times what it was.
Yeah, or vice versa, where you can barely get into it. So it is important to check on any of these caches every so often just to make sure. And you know, for those hanging lamp skirts, we've seen the lamp skirts where someone's run into the lamp skirt and the lamp skirt no longer lifts up.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's also a good time when we're out there too, to check on things like the seals on the container. You know, O-rings on the bison tubes, cracked lids, things like that. Because you know, it's definitely, seasons have effect on these containers. You know, the hot summer and the cold winter. Those are times when they definitely break the containers. And even on things like ammo containers, well, they're built to be really strong and really weather resistant. A lot of times you get the seals that are messed up. Same thing with the like I said, the O-rings and the bison tubes, things like that. And then once your container goes bad, it is really super easy just to get the weather in there and make it really nasty, like we had before. Well, I see that we have a caller on the line. Daryl, can you introduce our caller?
Yeah, we have KMB on the line with us. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, hey guys, how you doing tonight?
We're doing very well. And what can you pitch in about cache maintenance?
Well, we live in we're in Arizona, so during the summertime it's really hard to get out there and do any type of caching or any type of maintenance. But we're getting into the fall season that it's about time to get out there and check on our caches. I think we own about 45, and they vary from anywhere from an ammo can to nanos, whether it be a urban or somewhere out in the desert terrain. So it's starting to finally cool off a bit now that we can get out there and start doing some maintenance on some of these. Because there's nothing worse than, you start getting these logs or these notifications that either the log's full or they can't find it.
Definitely, and that's why I think that it is definitely important for us to, as cachers or cache owners, to get out there and do a good service to our fellow cachers. Get out there and make sure that our hides are of high quality and they're going to be ones that are going to last, and that when people get out there, they're not going to find things like dead animals around them or the soaked logs or things like that, because no one likes going out and finding things that are empty like that. So this is always a good thing to go ahead and get out there and help our fellow cachers.
Yeah, because I actually checked on one the other day because we had a pretty good, I don't know if you're up to date with the weather out here in the west, but we had some pretty good torrential rainfalls, and we do have a couple of caches that are on the ground, and I went and checked on one, and when I opened it up, it was just full of mud. So, and it's not a cache that's regularly found, but from time to time it is. So I brought it home, replaced it with a new one, updated the swag. I even put a path tag in it. Just.
Is that something that you get like a lot of flash floods in that out that way?
Yeah, from time to time we do. I try not to place a cache that's subject to that kind of environment. Just because it for safety reasons.
Sure. That's awesome.
Well,
Now, KMB, I think you're actually co-hosting another show with Hiker James, am I correct?
Yes, I am.
Can you give our listeners a little bit about that show in case they want to check that one out?
Well, it's on Blog Talk Radio, the Hiker James Geocaching Talk Show, and it's just anything related to geocaching. We don't necessarily have a specific topic, but if you'd like to call in with a story or any input on geocaching, it's on Saturdays at 3 p.m. Mountain Standard Time.
All right, thank you very much.
Well, Daryl, let's talk a little bit tonight about when is it time to archive a cache. Obviously caches do get old, and they get at some point it's time to archive a cache. And we've talked about this on other shows, but this is a good time to bring this up. I mean, because we're talking about maintenance and all. I go along the lines of if I can't get out there and do maintenance on it right away, I may disable it. Like if I get a notification that the lid's cracked or the log is full or things like that, I'll temporarily disable it for a little while. And if I'm not going to be able to get out to it, maybe within a timely fashion, a week or two, I'm really tempted to archive it, because I know a lot of mine, unless it's a really special hide, if it's just going to be something that's placed out there and there's nothing that has a real big meaning behind it or a nice container or things like that, I'm going to go ahead and archive it, and then I'll pick up the geo litter later when I get a chance to get out there. But for me, I think it's time to archive it if it's not been found in a while and you don't have a chance to get out there and fix it, or you just want to open it up and place, let someone else put something there, that way you can get out and find another cache too.
Yeah, and I mentioned earlier where I've had to go and change the cache and archive it and relist it because of the change in the camo or the terrain or whatever that is. And that's a really good thing to consider, is you don't really want to go, especially these days with the way everyone's working on their stats, you really don't want to go changing the terrain and difficulty ratings on your cache anymore. You generally want to go and archive it and replace it as a new cache with a new difficulty and terrain, because that way those who found it with whatever the appropriate ratings were keep that rating in their archives, and it also gives everyone a chance to come back and find a new cache in that area.
Yeah, I think that's great. And like I said, I had probably 4 or 5 that it was one of those things where I checked on one and said, wow, this changed so much. Well, how much did the other one change in terrain? And yeah, that's exactly what it is. I ended up archiving 4 of them, and I'm going to go back and replace some other ones, actually some bigger ones, because the terrain actually now supports those type of geocaches, and that is definitely the way to go. But sometimes you just got to let it go. You just, the area, you can't you can't maintain it anymore. Sometimes people move, sometimes they get transferred, sometimes they go to other jobs. And, if you can't maintain them and you start having problems where people are saying, hey, this thing needs maintenance, it's time to archive them.
I definitely agree. Well, this has been an awesome conversation tonight, and it's something that I think that as geocachers we need to keep in mind, that we need to be out there intending our geocaches, and this is any time we need to be out there keeping our geocaches up. But fall, spring, summer, those are all great times of the changing of the seasons to get out there and do it and to remind us to go out and do that. We want to thank you guys for subscribing to the Geocaching podcast. We want to thank Cash-Advance.com for making this episode financially possible. Join us each Wednesday night at 9:30 p.m. Eastern on the TalkShoes or on geocachingpodcast.com/live. You can watch us record and chat with our other listeners. Our show notes and links to all of our past shows can be found at geocachingpodcast.com. We have a voicemail line, and that number is 630-31-VOICE. Have a safe week and happy caching.